Hey guys, or folks.
Hello.
Well, hello. Trey, I heard you were up north.
I am indeed up north. Let me see why OBS is. Oh, that's why. Boom.
Oh my God, dude.
Yeah, I'm living in a trailer right now.
Are you in the rig?
Yeah, I'm in the rig,
Nice.
having a nice adult beverage.
So wait, where are you? This is not Toronto. How far north are you?
I'm in Sudbury, Ontario. So I'm about 400 kilometers north of Toronto.
I told Kemp this morning, I was like, yeah, I don't think Dre's gonna come. But it's like, I'm not sure. He's like kind of on the road. He told me he's up north, and I was like, I don't know what that means for a Canadian.
And honestly, all day I've been like picturing you in different scenarios. Like I've just been like fantasizing about like where you could be up north. Okay. You're further south than I thought you were, but yeah.
It's I'm at the top. I'm just north of Georgian Bay, so it's not like Arctic north, but it's north enough that the weather's really cold. But what the funny thing is that this
Hello.
trailer.
Can you guys hear me?
Yep.
Yeah.
Hey.
Okay, I cannot hear you.
Uh-oh. Those are great things you're missing.
But I think I can now. Yes. Thank you, Dre.
Cool. You're welcome. I fixed it. Yeah, the trailer is inside a warehouse, and my truck is parked right next to my trailer in this nice, warm, dry warehouse environment, away from the snowy outside.
So
all right, it's still winter in parts of the world.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm living in a trailer in a warehouse in the north.
So how far are you from Lake Huron?
Well, Georgian Bay is part of Lake Huron, so it's far enough that Lake Huron is really huge compared to Georgian Bay, but it's a few hours to drive to a place that gets me onto Lake Huron.
Got it. Wow.
Like if I went to Manitoulin Island, part of that is on Lake Huron, so that would be big 2.5 hours away, I guess.
That's wild.
It is wild indeed.
Geeking out looking at it. That's really cool. We'll give it another minute. I know Brandel said go ahead and get started. We can jump right in actually, because we've got, I'm really glad that you guys all joined. So thank you for taking time tonight. I'm not going to present anything just because I was only going to really show stuff for people who hadn't seen where we were at with Chore stuff already, but I'll go over what we talked about earlier this morning. So on the call we had this morning.
I think you missed someone in the invite. I think you missed Ben.
Yeah, is he here?
I'll message him. But I don't think he was in like the.
Oh, I messaged him independently.
Yeah.
But I haven't heard back from him, so I'm not sure. But this morning we talked about, basically this call was, I'm not an AR person, so I wanted to basically round the troops, or a better analogy that's less combative, to talk about if anyone has expertise in that. And Camille, it sounded like from other conversations you've had some good experience in that. We ended up on AR filters from Dre, a conversation that we had on a previous circle the wagons, yes. A previous digital call that we'd had around just sort of being the lowest entry point, right? Like the most accessible entry point. So that sort of leads us to today. I left our last meeting downloading Snap Lens Studio, and Brandel did the same. So we're going to talk later this week or next week about sort of what we discover through it. And Camille, if you have thoughts on it, please chime in a second. Some other thoughts that were brought up this morning was this idea of like, how is this being provocative enough? Are we pushing the envelope far enough with this? Does it need to right now? Will it get there through exploration on its own? So I want to rope that into the conversation as well, because that was raised earlier today as well. So open-ended now, we can.
I have a couple of thoughts I could throw into that to help expand on that. I've done work in Snap Lens Studio a few times. It's okay. It's relatively easy to author in. The results aren't amazing, but it's kind of limited in terms of where you can use it. Because you have to use it within Snapchat, or you can use it as a desktop application. I was talking to a friend of mine today who's an AR developer, and he's done a bunch of commercial AR work, and we got on the phone and I asked him some questions about what his impression was. He recommends I told him what we were trying to do is something that would is lowest common denominator, like easy access entry point, but something that doesn't require too many hurdles. And he recommended we take a look at the web AR ecosystem. He said that seems to be where a lot of good stuff is happening because it's web-based. It runs client side, so you don't have to even download any special apps. A lot of the times it'll run right in the browser, which means iPhone, iOS, or Android, whatever. So that's what his recommendation was, to explore web AR, which got me thinking that I know that Apple has ARKit, and Brandel probably has some experience and some experience with ARKit. And that is a little bit more proprietary, but I'm curious to see like where does web AR and ARKit overlap. But short of looking into all the various libraries, I guess web AR is a lot more. I'm not sure if it's 3JS. Is it 3JS? I don't know if it's 3JS. Yeah, I guess
3JS is a good library for like 3D assets. And then A-Frame is like the kind of most common framework for AR, VR experiences via web.
I think what I like about that is that it's a lot more open. It's not as proprietary, and there's probably a bunch of developers out there that we could rely on, and there's probably tons of documentation to dig into. Anyways, that was my chat. There'll be tons of libraries in this ecosystem.
I mean, I kind of think that since it's early, we're in like a maybe multi-platform research phase. So maybe like, since we have a lot of sort of energy and members, maybe, we can sort of diversify and test if there's like interest or sort of desire to do that. Just like, because I don't necessarily know how easy it is, like, putting our 3D models in like the 3JS, JavaScript space versus like, more people probably know how to work with them with sort of more native software that like, stuff like Lens Studio and like Instagram filters have like already kind of like integrated into the way they work.
Yeah, with that, I feel if we wanted to just really quickly prototype something in that spirit, Snap Studio would probably be the best choice to quickly prototype something. I don't think it'll get us to where we ultimately want to go.
I agree. But I agree. I guess I think there's kind of value in like, exploring different platforms and like having people maybe lean more into skill sets. I don't know, like it would be cool to create something, but then, availability on all platforms, right? Because that feels very rare. And that also feels like from a brand sort of business level, you know, that's like a nice symbol of like hegemony, right? Like, oh yeah, we're on every platform. Like, is this your phone? You know, do this, you know, you have this app, use that, right?
So my
Yeah.
thing right now is like I don't know what the it is. I'm not even feeling it. I was telling Kemp like I just have no idea. It's just it's this nebulous thing that maybe we're all probably seeing something completely different. So we haven't. I don't feel like we've gotten to the point where, which is why I think the idea of like let's just use let's just do something with whatever anyone in particular is fluent with, to just get to the it, and see what that is, because I don't know what it is. Like I don't know what is the thing that we brought back from the future. We're just, and so right now this feels like a very technology heavy exercise without any sense of rhyme or reason. And I think we need to get to that rhyme or reason somehow.
Yeah, I think to second that, I think knowing your end destination will inform every decision you make, whether it's to pursue lenslets on Snap or web AR, VR. Very different roadmap.
Like I'm not even sure why it's an AR thing. Like what reality is being augmented, and for what? What's the thing that you went into someone's closet and you're like, oh my God, look at this thing? Like, did you go in the closet and say like, oh my God, what's this thing? It's an augmented reality thing. And if it was, what is that? And why is it there? Well, how did it help them, forage for food or get to work or do their morning exercise better or whatever it is? Like the human element, like the necessity of it, its existence as like, is it a coffee mug thing? Where's the camera? It's a coffee mug. Is it a, is it for, do you draw with it? And if so, why? And does it feel, the thing is to not make it feel gratuitous. And right now, like AR, I don't mean that in a pejorative sense, but like AR to me is still just like a, like a tech bro fantasy. I have not yet seen like a barely even industrial, like the industrial use case is like, oh well, if you have using heavy equipment, you can use it for like a heads up display. Like, okay, I get that stuff's been around since the 60s or whatever. Or like help me, I remember the case when this was like in 92, when I was at UW. It was like, oh, this will help Boeing plant factory people figure out where to route the cable assembly harnesses when they're assembling a plane. It'll make them so much more efficient. I don't even know if that's there, if people are actually using that. They might be, but it just seemed like, okay, that makes sense. But then what is our thing of that really feels like, oh yeah, cool. I mean, what took so long for that idea to come along? Like, what's our wheels on luggage thing? Where you're like, man, look at that thing. That's awesome. Because even if we did like an AR experiment with the like the Snap kit, like what would it be? Literally, like what would you be doing? If the thing taught you how to do it and you figured out, okay, I got the technology working, I got a watermelon floating in space, then what? Like the watermelon floating in space is like hello world, but no one learns to program just so they can do hello world. Like there's a thing out there that they're trying to get to. Does that make sense?
I like to feel like I've mastered the language once I've gotten Hello World to print, and then I can move on to the next thing. Yeah, it makes sense. I think the reason I think we're talking about AR today is in a couple of meetings ago, we were discussing the idea of like, well, what do we do with a 3D coat? We were asking kind of the questions that you're asking today. And one of the conclusions that we came to was, well, where's the most mass, what is like the lowest common denominator place that people could interact with a digital asset, if it's a digital asset of a coat? And AR seems to be one of those lowest common denominator things. It just lives on our phones. Yes, it is gimmicky, solving any problems right now. And I'm not defending this as in any type of fervent way. I'm just basically saying that is strategically like an idea that we could AR facilitates the idea of people taking selfies with the coat. I think that's what it boiled right down to. We wanted people to be able to like try the coat on in some kind of a virtual way. We wanted it to be the equivalent of people holding up the manual of design fiction book that gets repeated over and over and over and over again. I think that's a possibility there. That's not the only place that it could live. There are other things like the idea that, like, if you want to get into the function, is there a function that a virtual coat could have inside a virtual world very specifically? If it was the Minecraft virtual Chore coat, is there something that it does very specifically in Minecraft that facilitates like the carrying of more things? Those are other questions that we could ask ourselves like that. Like, is it something that's less common, but maybe a bit more focused?
Yeah.
That could allow us to express like the functionality of the coat better.
Yeah. Look, I mean, I think these are like worthy experiments for sure. I also feel like and on the other side of it, it's like, okay, so we just did it. It's just an AR demo, but there are no AR demos in the future. There's just AR, if there is AR, and you don't think of it as like a demo of like trying on a virtual coat or have it having some function in a game world. Like it still feels like this is the second tutorial that you do after you got AR Kit working. You know what I mean? It still feels like it's too close to essentially, you know, you could probably make those things relatively easily. I'm assuming, you know, I'm just sort of guessing, like in these things, like after you do Hello World, then it's like, okay, make a network connection and pull some data from some other, you know, from a website. Like, okay, I got that working. But then you do that not because that's what you're trying to get to, because you're trying to develop fluency. So we can do these things. In my mind, they're still not, they're not a design fiction. They're just a tutorial. And so, you know, getting to that point, maybe we just have to do those things. And also, I don't think that they're the thing. Like I wouldn't know what kind of story to tell about that, other than the usual, you know, slightly boring thing of like, in the future we'll be able to try on clothes using this AR mirror, you know, which is out there and all over the place. I mean, you know, that's nothing where it's kind of like, oh wow, that's.
Well, I mean, I'll
what?
push back on that, Julian, because I mean, the whole point of the accessories was that there was infinite narrative, right? That everyone had through that ideation, the first ideation, everyone's narrative of what the near future was different, right? So like your version of what the near future is, what you're going and finding and coming back with was vastly different than what mine was, right? And if their first piece of merch was to facilitate going into the near future and coming back, well, one code isn't going to, like, I don't use moleskins, right? I don't have any of those physical objects. So like your code and my code are going to be different. So our physical code, if we're going to make something in IRL worlds, that code can all look uniform, right? We can have a foundation or like a framework code that will act as like a piece of merch. But then the accessories developed out of this space of, if we've got 800 plus members, is there a way to access infinite permutations of what a near future could look like, right? So that the narrative of what the near future labs is not just Julian's or Dre's or Kemp's. It can be endless permutations of what the near future lab looks like. So then you have all these world building people coming together saying, yeah, I go into the near future and my near future is we've saved the planet and all these things have happened. And so I have these 3 products and I have these digital accessories and they're on my coat, right? And if you access this through a template of like lowest common denominator, like an AR filter, then you can see what my version of that is. Then that goes into this idea of world building and narrative crafting, storytelling, which I think is infinitely fascinating. I'm not sure what I'm resonating with what you're saying is, I think that you're right. If there is a disconnect right now with what of this product or this project is now and what is coming back from the future. right? Like, are these accessories things that we're bringing back from the future, or are they things that the people are designing from the future that they're going to the future with and coming back with? I think that's something that I thought of it as a template or a platform for them to create their own thing.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't think of the technology of an AR filter as being like innovative. I think maybe the system in which we create a workshop or what happens after that may be the thing that futures from there. Does that track or no?
I mean, I see what you're saying. I guess I'm hearing it, and like my visual thinking isn't seeing it, which doesn't mean that I'm saying that it's, you know, it's wrong or anything. But I haven't heard something that where I'm like, oh man, that's it. Yeah, I get it now. So I think that's why I'm like, I think, you know, you just need to start building some stuff
Yeah.
and seeing what happens, because the yeah, I'm it just hasn't got for me, and it, you know, if other people are feeling it, that's amazing. It hasn't gotten to the point where it's like, okay, that is the thing. Like I can that feels like something that is a like a design fiction.
Yeah.
Like it's and maybe just because it's so it I don't know, like maybe even just starting, like, you know, maybe don't build the thing, just be like, hey, is anyone you know, here on this call right now, like immediately seeing like, okay, here's the ad for that thing.
When you say ad, is that the ad for the object? Is that the ad for the app? Is that the ad for the narrative?
Whatever, you know, just anything where it's like, oh my god, that's this is totally what I can see. The um the Ross Dress for Less ad for this. I can see this is how, do they even exist anymore? The Gap. This is a Gap archetype ad. Clean white background, little kid with the thing, and then here's a little thing like that, the one liner, the Ogilvy one liner. It's like the thing you've been waiting for, or whatever. You know, whatever that, you know, the something that Dre would chin up. Or the you know, the dancing people for Apple. Like what is the thing where you kind of like, man, I've wanted, that's it. And so that it makes it feel not as, because I hear what you're describing is there's a certain richness to the complexity, but you haven't sold it. There's not the thing that you're sort of tapping into someone almost at the emotional level. It sounds like, and I don't mean this, I'm being critical for the point of trying to move it in a good direction, is like it sounds like work. It sounds like there's a bunch of stuff I need to do, and really I just want to get a you know, like a picture hung on my wall.
Yeah, I guess I don't see it that way, because I mean, that's just sort of the world in which I live in, right? Like it's not work for me to go down to Fairfax and just like stand in line and do a drop, right? Like I would definitely build an accessory and have an individual virtual identity and build a world in which my future's identity exists beyond just a piece of merch, right? Like, I mean, not only would I do that, I'm already doing that, right? Like we all are already doing that through digital identities. So, I mean,
So what's the difference? So, and I don't want, I definitely don't want to frustrate you. So that's not my goal here.
You're not frustrating me. I think this is super fruitful. So
Okay,
it's
good.
not a frustration at all.
Okay, I'll stop apologizing.
Yeah.
So like when I just sort of like based on instinct go and get 3 pairs of Tom Shack's 4 pairs general purpose shoes, I get that I'm doing that because I want to represent a particular affinity and affiliation, and the white ones, not the brown one. The white ones and the orange ones are cool. The brown ones just make me want to throw up. But so I pick those and I think about it when I put them on. Like I'm like these are the shoes that I'm gonna rock, and I feel something.
Right.
Is there something equivalent? Like, what is the Fairfax line that you would get on, and what would it look like in this context? Like if you can
So
get
I
to the point
think
of like representing it that way, like as a drop, like do it as think of it, or actually depict it. Go through the trouble of like, this is the brand, this is the drop, and these are the people, these kind of people who are going to wait in a line for it. And then what is the
Right.
thing that on the other side of it, when I get past the security guard, I go in, I throw it on my credit card, and they give me one, and I walk out. What is in that bag?
Well, I think we also brought up, what was it, Crocs was it Crocs that we had on one of the office hours, or
Yeah, with the
our
charms,
last
the Crocs charms, or
with the
something.
charms? Yeah, so I think that's another good example, but I think the Tom Sachs shoes really work as well. Like, I think of, and I'm doing this off the cuff, and so bear with me, because I think what's coming for me for this conversation is like piecing this all out conceptually. But if the coat is Fairfax, right? Like if the coat acts as the space, right? Because the coat is existing in the world,
Mm-hmm.
right? And then Fairfax is the street. It's like the platform in which you're all coming to the space, right? Like you're all waiting in line on Fairfax. If the coat is, I own the coat, so I'm in LA, I'm on Fairfax, we're all at like ground zero with the coat. And then whether you're waiting in line at Supreme or Golf or the like secret sneaker shop around the corner, that to me is sort of like where the nuances of what your individual identity, or whether you're there for the Poochie drop or the whatever drop collab is, that to me feels like the nuance of it all.
Mm-hmm.
And I see it as, and maybe I'm giving a lot of credibility to something that hasn't had the demand for it yet, but as I'm looking through these accessories, like they spark interest to me, and they seem to be sparking interest to others as well. So I see them as like, as people are developing their own accessories, like if somebody comes up with an accessory that I want, then we can do that drop, and then maybe people want to build onto like building out their future's identity. And I'm not saying like we're building these things for like hundreds of dollars or even $30 a drop, but why not have a coat with your future accessories or identity to it?
Mm-hmm.
That's sort of where I see it going.
So I think what I'm hearing is an analogy to Fairfax. And so that sounds like almost when so I've had a lot of these conversations about what to do with technology, and specifically AR at Google when I was there. It was like 6 years of like, okay, this is cool technology. What do we do with it? And I think that so this analogy to Fairfax and the shopping angle is one side of it. I think another side that often gets overlooked is how technology is really prominent in the production process. And that can lead to really interesting artifacts in the output. 3D printing being a good example, right? These artifacts that come through as kind of subtle, but not part of there's no technology experience that you're trying to push on the end consumer. The consumer experiences the technology through the artifact.
I think AR apps are really successful at showing scale. I guess show of hands, how many of you guys have used AR apps in the wild? Not because it was AR, but because it was helpful. No, just me? Oh, I see a hand.
What do you
Dre
mean the
having a hand.
wild? Like actual wild?
Like, oh man, I don't know if this IKEA couch is gonna fit in my house, but IKEA has this
totally.
really convenient AR app, right? Like, so
Yeah.
I think it can be used as a tool. You know, I don't necessarily know what that tooling looks like in our situation, like, but to me, it seems like it's a good method for sort of collection. Just in that, like, I kind of, an idea I recently pitched was like, in sort of a mixed reality environment, like, you know, assuming in a future, like more people are wearing, you know, AR displays or sort of heads up displays, et cetera, right? Like, imagine if you walked by someone and as part of a street interaction, you know, one of their sort of physical items of clothing ended up in your digital closet. You know, like, can we use some sort of AR interaction as like a mechanism for exchange, right? And maybe it's gimmicky and maybe it's fun, but maybe it also encourages you to like find and connect with other, you know, near future lab members in that, like, oh, you know, if I look at, you know, Dre's coat through my, you know, the AR filter, like, you know, something special happens, right? Like, can we use this as sort of unlocking mechanism or a form of collection, or just, you know, like, not necessarily just for sort of narrative, but as a smaller piece of sort of like a larger puzzle, just because we do have sort of an infrastructure of many projects.
I love that. I mean, that's sort of where I was going with it, either on our last digital call or during an office hours at one point. Like, I love this idea of it triggering that the community or the building of that. And we talked about some sort of glass thing this morning as well, like glass element, and the code just being the framework to just being a nice, if we do like a rail or a piping system, it just having like a framework that would be easily read. Is that where you're getting at? Because I mean, I find that to be, I guess like that is a world in which, I don't know, that to me feels futuring to, in the sense of like, if I'm in a different city or a different world and I have this display and all of a sudden this pops up and I have access into where you just came back from the near future, and I'm not looking at your like trip to Tulum, but I'm looking at your trip to what the near future was, and you came back and you got these things, and I'm sitting down and we're talking about this whatever thing that you just came back from the near future with. Like, it feels like the next level of, I don't know, like that I would be interested in.
I have a niggle in my think fiddle. I was thinking about what Julian was saying before about, you know, what is the design fiction, and it's funny that we kind of skipped over an entire, you know, kind of design fiction process in doing this, and I think it'd be really, really fun to just do a bit of a design fiction sprint on the coat. Like, we have the object. Imagine this was the work kit, right? We have the object, it's a coat. We have a Miro board full of different tones and functionality that we can rope in there. So we could just maybe do stuff like, what do the ads look like? I'm just imagining, you know, Julian, you said something like, is it a Gap ad? Is it an Apple ad? Is it whatever? And I'm imagining, what if it was like one of those Apple ads where they had the earbuds in white with the black silhouette? It'd be interesting to see that. Like, well, what does that person look like? Because if it's a digital coat, it doesn't have to look like a person. And that people start asking questions like, what does that mean? Why does that not person looking thing wearing a coat? And even the tag on the garment tag would be another fun design fiction. But what are all the other elements around it that we could help build the world of the Chore coat? And it might start answering some of the questions of like, what are we feeling? What are we feeling that we actually want to move with technically? What are other people feeling about it?
I'm interested in doing this. I think even if it just
Yeah.
leads to like research, or I think there's value in doing this, whether that value gets applied to near future lab or other things is another conversation. But I think, as a group of people, who works in sort of the futurism space, we have a lot more sort of interesting sort of archetypal classic objects and examples, but we don't have, as much sort of digital play elements, right? And I think that's sort of a strength we have, but I think like it would benefit us to, explore the digital space, just because we have, we use digital tools for everything we do, but we sort of produce more physical products. Like, wouldn't it be nice to have just a digital product offering? Sort of, contextualizing us like a services firm or something.
Yeah, and I think that like the idea of the design fiction that I'm proposing we do as a sprint isn't intended to be the end result. It's intended to be the thing that helps inspire the end
That's
result.
what we need. I think we need that, or at least I do. I mean, it sounds like you guys have a good handle on it, which is amazing. I don't need to have a handle on it. It's just that getting a better feel for what this is, and just for me, just for I'm not saying do it for me. I'm saying where I start feeling engaged in something where it trips over something at some point that makes it feel, I guess in this case, not the AR of today, but the AR when people don't even say AR. It's just is. It's some component of
It's the ubiquitous
life.
computing.
Yeah, but what's
Because
that?
it's visible to our eyes.
I don't know. No one says ubiquitous computing except people like
Yes.
us. Like my mom doesn't say it. No, but she doesn't say it, but she talks to her television. That's Ubicomp, but she's not going to say Ubicomp. I can say, Mom, you talking to the television. Actually, there's a bunch of papers that describe what that's about. And she's like, I don't give a fuck. Like, I love it. I say, show me my show or whatever. So what is AR for that? When we're done fetishizing the technology in itself, and it's just kind of like, like Kemp, you're not even, it's not even you're not even pausing to think about it. In some sense, it's like it says, what'd you do, Sam? Did you just have a drink of water?
I did.
Was it from a bottle, a water bottle?
From a can of LaCroix.
Yeah, what the fuck?
ASMR.
Like we're drinking water out of cans? Like in my day, there was no such thing. That people would have been like, the fuck you doing? Where'd that come from? How do you know what that is?
I was even trying to explain this to someone earlier today, because when we got off our first call, I was reflecting on what we had talked about, and I said, we're going with the lowest common denominator of AR filters, and they're like, I don't know, how do you even access that? And I was like, what? And I was like, I forgot that this space is so unique, right? Like when we get on these calls,
rarefied, and it's just like there are 12 people in the world who are into it, whatever. But
that's why, like,
talk to my mom about AR filters, and she's gonna be like, Julian, who's this guy who's calling me up talking about AR filters?
So like, I will gladly infinitely be frustrated with conversations with this group, because it's like it's better than anything. I mean, I'm going to get off this call and someone's going to be like, oh, did you watch the State of the Union yesterday? I'm going to be like, like, so I want to really reiterate, like, Julian, your pause in this is also helping me force myself to think about it more holistically. I also see something in my head, and I don't know necessarily how to frame it, which is why I love having Dre's input and Camille's input and Brandel's and Sam's and everybody else's, because you all have different visions of these things. And that's why also this coat really, like, my background is I've always been teaching and or doing entrepreneurship. So it's always been my brain. And I really wanted this coat to not be my brain, right? Like I wanted it to not come from like Kemp makes a coat. So that's really where this was like this group effort, especially with the accessories, comes in, where it's like everyone's version of not like designed by a committee here, but a little bit in the sense of like the future is up for grabs, right? And we get to create that. And I want to know everyone's version of that. So I think that I want to applaud just the frustration and pushing me at the same time. So I think the design exercise of the future of the fiction sprint, I think, is a great next step.
One thing that was coming to mind, and Kemp, I think you would appreciate this. What I think of as probably the most successful use of augmented reality technology by large fashion brands has nothing to do with the AR filters, wearing clothes digitally. That was all kind of in the AR kit, smartphone AR era. But I think actually Christopher Bailey in 2013 of Burberry, he was a creative director of Burberry. For those that don't know, I know Kemp is going to know that. He partnered with Google to do kind of an interesting poetic exploration of what is the modern love letter and how love letters have gotten lost as we've moved away from the analog world. So they were interested in this idea of, well, you used to to sign a letter, you used to kiss that letter. And we don't have that anymore. You don't have any analog of kissing a text message. So they introduced a way to send a love letter by using camera technology, identifying the user's lips. You make a kiss, it takes that and turns it into what might look like if you had kissed a piece of paper to send this love letter. I thought it was really successful in just how it raises that question of what things have we lost as we've moved from analog to digital? What artifacts of that world, of what is the romance that's been lost in our world? So I think that itself is a very interesting question. And if we can find something where, we can reintroduce that character that the analog world used to have, that our digital world so sterile is missing.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of him anyway, but that's a good reference.
Is there any anything that was there a presentation about that or anything of that sort that about?
I can. They released a website for this, and they did all kinds of press releases around it. It was a big. This was 2013. I doubt any of it still exists, but here's
Kent makes a coat. Okay.
Yeah, I can't remember the last time I threw my down over a puddle for somebody to walk over it. It's been so long. I feel like that's
so Canadian.
That's the lost. That's the loss. That's what we've lost in fashion. I feel like that we need a little equivalent of throwing your coat over the puddle.
That's funny. Like a puddle-proof coat. A coat that's designed to be thrown over a puddle would be interesting.
Well, I mean, same when you're talking, like one of the things that Christopher is really big on is imprint, right? Like he's really big on LGBT and all this other stuff. And like that idea of imprint and impact, right? Like the physical texture or garment having this lasting imprint is definitely something that digital, like what is the digital imprint or impact? Like when you sit on a sofa, you get up and there's that like seat mark. And what is the digital version of that? Or like when you sit on this is a bad analogy, but like when you sit on a public toilet and it's still warm, right? Like what is the digital version of traces of other humans? I'm thinking in just there's something there though, I think that it's a good.
Yeah, it's like that stale cigarette smell in the elevator, from
right.
the 3 type of thing.
better than the toilet analogy. Yeah, I do think though that we're not going to get there without going through the process. I feel like this may be one of those things that we get to through it. Would somebody want to do the fiction sprint with me, like design that with me?
Yeah, you know what? I
Host it?
was on the side. Yeah, I'm happy to do that. On this, I was just making notes on the side, thinking like I'm trying to do my design fiction kettlebells every day. I'm always looking for I'm always looking for like the thing to to me it's like, oh, maybe the chore coat just becomes the theme for the next few things. Yeah, I did that one whatever garment tag a long time
Yeah.
ago, and that was inspired from our conversations with the chore coat. But now it's like, okay, well maybe I'll revisit that garment tag and just literally just put it on a chore coat and do the
Yes.
same thing with like what's the little sign that says wash before wearing. What does that mean? What is that? Close up on the the electrical considerations of the coat, or I don't know what are the design fiction elements that might surround this coat, the special hanger that it comes on. What are the various archetypes that we could explore? What does the ad look like? What does this ad look like versus that ad look like? Just start making that list. I think that I'm happy to sprint on that and almost create maybe just we could even just go like, here's a list of archetypes, and we know what the object is, and we know some of that stuff in the Miro board can influence all the other cards. It's almost like here's a bunch of different archetypes that we could just explore that revolve around a coat, and hopefully that just we're not finding the answer. We're just looking for a whole bunch more questions that might get us even more excited about the future direction of this. So I like that. Yeah, count me in. Let's do it. I will bake it into my my kettlebell routine.
So 2 things on that. One, Dre, I emailed Crunch Gym, which is down the street from me, and they send out an annual review, and they asked if there was if we had any opinions, and I said, if you want a redesign pro bono or free of charge, I'd gladly offer our services. They have not gotten back to me, but I thought it would be, if they did, I was like, this would be the perfect place in West Hollywood to interject like a futures gym. Not to derail this, but I just thought that'd be really cool if they got back.
Man, I want nothing more than to scream Imagine Harder behind somebody while they're like lifting something heavy.
Especially a bunch of like, this gym has like a ton of porn stars in it for some reason. So there's just something really, the idea of like cultivating a bunch of like futures porn stars to me sounds hysterical. But that gym needs a redo. But if we want to do that as a group, or if anyone just wants to do it as like a coffee shop thing, I would love to have some camaraderie with it. Do we want to do it like a workshop, or do we just want to get some of us do it on their own, some of us get together?
I think it would benefit us to do it in a group, or at least have like kind of a like designated like crit time or something, just so we're not sort of working in a vacuum.
I agree. All right, I'll put together some time and then run it by. And Dre, do you have limited access?
Oh, in terms of like my time?
Time and like you said, you're in a truck in a warehouse.
In a tray? Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, when I'm in here, I can do whatever the hell I want. I'm totally down with that. Time wise is a little sketchier because I've got predisposed during the day for a good chunk of the day, but yeah, it's like this time works well for me right now. But for something like this, I'll just carve out the time. Let's throw some options down, and I'll tell you what.
Okay. Date wise, since we're all on this together, what would be the earliest people would be willing to do this?
I mean, I could do it as early as next week.
Yeah, I have no life, so I'm free.
Yeah, ditto.
Camille, I think you may have more of a
life.
Yeah, packed schedule.
Do we want to do this as like a weekend? Do we want to have a specific office hour dedicated to reviewing this? I feel like office hours have gotten a lot bigger lately, so I think this maybe has to be separate.
I agree. Let's shoot for an evening time slot, maybe. Camille, do you have any evenings that you can do on a weekday?
Oh, sound went out.
Oh,
Yeah, her sound went out.
sorry, I just saw that. Cool.
No worries. Whatever time it is now, it's probably at the, I guess it's be about almost 6:30 for you.
Yep.
That's like probably on the later edge. I'm gonna be in bed in about half an hour myself. So
Yeah, if we stick with like a if we do 5 or 5:30,
yeah, that works.
and then Camille, I'll just DM you and we can figure out a time that you're free, and then I'll send this out tomorrow though, if that works. Because I'd love to get it. I want to run more smoothly so that we're all on the same page.
I hear
Cool.
you.
Awesome. And then I'll touch base with Brandel, because as far as I know, he's just been diving into Snaplands today. So
Brandel, we need you in AR kit. You have the resources.
Yeah, I think he might actually know ARKit a little bit.
He probably already does, because he does WebVR stuff. Like he's
Yeah,
like, I mean, he definitely knows, I think, WebVR better than any of us. Like
yeah,
he's very familiar with 3JS. So I think, he's a great team member to have for obvious reasons.
so we'll make sure we got our design fiction up to par, and then is there any other, like, I hate saying this term, but like housekeeping or concern element to it?
What do you mean?
Like,
To the overall project, or
yeah,
I mean, nothing that immediately comes to mind. I mean, how are you feeling about the code proper?
I'm the physical one.
Yeah.
I'm working on isolating the smaller size. I think the large size is just, I'd like to prototype a smaller version. The large version is a little comical, I think.
I like that David Byrne thing.
I mean, I love the oversized. It looked like a very high-end garment in that one photo that Sam got of me, but
Yeah, it was Camille and I would drown in it. It's like, let me out. I can't.
you
I
put a
can't
Celine
breathe.
belt on that and you would be ready to go, Julian, I swear.
Julian, you
You
haven't
gotta-
seen the mini me, my digital accessory that's going to be in every Chore coat pocket.
I haven't. Camille,
I would love it. You get a Tom Sachs belt on you, and then you go off to Jolena, and you're just like wearing your Chore. Is the exact opposite of what you wanted in the very beginning of, like, I want to be able to wear this. And then I'm over here like, yes, this is gorgeous.
Amazing.
So I think I'm going to try to isolate the smaller size digitally, and then I'm going to send it to Jed to laser cut, and then I'll probably just glue it here. And then touch base with you guys after that one's done so that we can mark it up. Is that cool?
Yeah, totally. And then, sorry, for the digital thing, we're just gonna find a time. Is that right? We know a
Yep.
time, but it's the date. Time is a
Time
few
is-
hours before Dre's bedtime.
Yeah. 5 works for me. Does 5 work for everybody?
It's generally okay for me. I usually try to end
Okay.
my days around 3 or 4,
Okay.
or the
Um,
the formal part of the day. The
I'm going to
schedule.
shoot for 5, and then I would ideally maybe Monday or Tuesday.
Yeah.
Okay. And I can do 2 nights. Like if somebody can't make Monday, I can do another night. So in it to win it.
What's
And
the
do you-
timeline on this? Is this
Oh,
a week?
sorry.
Or we're still
What
deciding? Because my
what do you mean,
audio
like
cut
a-
out at a really opportune moment.
timeline on?
The sprint.
I'm shooting for next week to do the workshop together.
Yeah, the
Ah,
workshop.
okay. Okay, cool. I didn't know it was communal or not. Great.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think we should do. Yeah, my gut tells me if we're doing 90 minutes type of workshop and we're just blasting out a bunch of ideas, at the end of that 90 minutes, that we should just have some marching orders. Like, all right, you do this one, I do that one. Let's team up and do this one. And we just build out the things that need to get built out because it'll just be a bunch of random mock-ups that we need to create anyways.
Yep.
Yeah, I think we can make it nice and fast.
I love that. It's also just fun. All right.
Mhm.
Cool. This is helpful. I know it's not completely cemented, but that's good.
Yeah, cemented is boring.
Comfort in the whatever. I need someone.
Luxuriate in the confusion.
Yeah, I need a branding person here, Dre, and like all of you other people. I'm awful with words. I just got to get better at designing clothes digitally.
Yeah, you ask GP.
Yeah, it's chat
GPT.
GPT. Yeah,
That's-
just ask it. Say like, what do I mean?
Oh God, I'm so ready to be at like the movie Arrival, where I just like inkjet everything I'm feeling. Cool. Well, it's now 6:30 here. Dre's off in the wilderness, so we will let you go to bed. This is great. I feel better. And I will shoot out an invite tomorrow to everybody.
Cool.
Cool.
Good deal.
Cool. Awesome.
Thanks
Thank
for-
you guys for joining.
Yeah, thanks you
All right.
guys.
All right.
See you, everyone.
Night, y'all.
Bye.